Hillel Fuld, how did October 7th happen?
It's interesting you should ask that. I actually had a meeting about 3 hours ago with a very senior IDF officer, and I'm not going to pretend that I'm satisfied with his answer.
Can we correct the momentum of hate that has overtaken the Western free world in this partnership with the death cult?
So if you're asking Hillel Fuld, the geopolitical commentator, I have one answer, and if you're asking Hillel Fuld, the observant Jew, I have another answer.
Hillel Fuld is an Israeli-American tech influencer, startup advisor, writer, and speaker. He has dedicated his life to helping Israeli startups grow while using his voice to proudly defend Israel and the Jewish people. At a time when the world feels increasingly hostile to Jewish identity, his unapologetic approach and the courage to speak the truth is something that too few of us are doing in a time when the silence must be broken and our voices must be heard. I am Israel Ellis, and this is The Unfiltered View, a companion to the wake-up call. Please show your appreciation. Don't be shy. Show your appreciation by liking this podcast, sharing it, and following me on IsraelEllis.com and on Substack. Hillel Fuld, welcome to The Unfiltered View, and thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. That energy, I need more of that energy in my life, my friend.
Oh, you've got lots of energy, Hill. I've seen you on fire. I've seen you on fire. I want to see that fire, buddy.
It's rock and roll.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay. Hillel, what makes you tick? What are you doing? Why are you doing it? We both are working, stiffs out there, and all of a sudden, we're out here doing this. Talk to me.
Listen, we're living in historic times. I mean, when I say historic, as far as I'm concerned, we're living in biblical times. I mean, this is pretty unbelievable stuff we're witnessing. Things that, I got to be honest, I never thought I'd see in my day, in my life, both on the good side and on the bad side. I mean, obviously, we know all the bad that's happening, but there's a lot of good happening as well. And so what gets me ticking is helping the Jewish people, helping the land of Israel, spreading the Torah of Israel, and just being a good Jew.
Well, and you've been out there and you're doing some great things. And the thing is that you found your voice. I think that October 7th just freaked out a lot of people, and for good reason. I mean, all of us were just shocked, and it just was like, hey, give me a moment, give me a minute. I got to absorb what happened. October 8th just unleashed a tsunami of antisemitism throughout the world that almost seemed pre-planned and coordinated, to the question that everyone was asking me all over the world, wherever I traveled. And that question is a single, simple word: how? How did this happen? Hillel Fuld, how did October 7th happen?
It's interesting you should ask that. I actually had a meeting about 3 hours ago with a very senior IDF officer who manages a lot of the innovation being used in the IDF. And this isn't my first meeting with him or second meeting with him, but every time I meet with him, I ask him that question, right? He's hands-on with everything happening. I asked him, for example, on a scale from 1 to 10, how involved he was in the war against Iran, and he said a 9. So he's in-depth knowledge. And I'm not going to pretend that I'm satisfied with his answer. I'm not. But his answer was just a colossal failure of the IDF. And I said, okay, I get that. But where were they for the 8 hours? You can mess up for half an hour, for an hour, for 2 hours. Where were they for 8 hours? And he said to me something that I actually had never heard before, which makes a lot of sense, which is that, we weren't absent for 8 hours. They had, choppers up in the air. But at that point, the kibbutzim and the towns were so infested with terrorists that they didn't know who to fire at because they were all intertwined. But exactly what I heard. I had the same conversation with another individual, and that's exactly what I heard. They could not tell the difference between who was a terrorist and who was a civilian. There was total chaos and mayhem going on in those moments. And they had the Apaches up there hovering over. And that was the most difficult thing. They just didn't know who they were shooting at. Right. And listen, there's probably not one right answer here as far as how this happened. There's probably a mixture of a lot of things. But definitely, in my opinion, one of the major components here was probably the Israeli mentality of "Yeh beseder." Everything's going to be okay. Everything's fine. Hamas didn't partake in the last round of fighting, so they must be, reformed. Now they love peace, right? It's like, dude, how naive can you be? But it comes from a place of compassion, and we're naive people. It's hard for us to understand that not everyone is guided by the value system that we're guided by. And so there definitely was a cultural element of the Israeli mentality of, it will be okay. There's that. Of course, there's no sugarcoating that there was a massive failure of the security forces, but I'm sure there are going to be things that we discover over the next couple of years as this horrible day is investigated.
For years to come, I think the investigation's there. The wake-up call talks about 7 observations that I make. One of those observations is the funding of terror by foreign influences like Qatar and UNRWA. Another observation is what you mentioned, security failures, technical failures. I talk about political failures. I talk about a political system that no longer serves its master. I also talk about Jewish disunity. And I talk about the fact that we came to a point, we were at a nexus of the worst polarization that we've ever experienced amongst Jews. Very scary. I mean, it's on one hand, it's great that we have a democracy that supports dissent and supports dissenting opinion or different opinions out there that aren't shut down, which is very different from our neighbors. But on the other hand, it was very disturbing to see those protests and to continue to see them. And the concern is this polarization of Jewish disunity. And you talked about a very good point. We just talked about the idea that the IDF had trouble responding because they could not figure out who the enemy is. Months later, now almost 2 years later, coming up to the date, I think we're still having the same problem. I think that we still are trying to figure out where our enemy is. When you see these protests in the street, which are as horrible as they are, and as difficult it is to understand how the government can allow these obvious incitement of hatred happening in the streets in front of us. And when you see signs or images, just the other day I was out walking and saw these images spray painted on the University of Toronto sidewalks. And it was very anti-Jewish slogans. If that's overt anti-Semitism, I get that. You know who your enemy is. You know what I have a problem with is subversive anti-Semitism, where you don't know who your enemy is. And I think we're in real trouble over here. I understand recently you were banned from going to Australia from some kind of fringe blogger or social media, another useful idiot. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I was invited to speak at a fundraiser, 2 fundraisers actually, for Magen David Adom, which, if your viewers are not familiar, is basically the equivalent of the Red Cross, which is a first responders emergency organization that saves lives. And so I was invited to speak at the gala in Melbourne and the gala in Sydney to raise money for this incredible organization. The topic of my talk was not political, not about the conflict. It was about Israeli innovation. And everything was set. And I was supposed to fly out Tuesday morning. About, I would say, Wednesday afternoon, someone sent me a tweet of some small little account calling for people to contact immigration and get me blocked from Australia because of my quote-unquote inflammatory tweets. The account that sent it was a very small, insignificant account, so I didn't pay much attention to it. And I moved on. Friday morning, I get a shocking, baffling email from the Australian government letting me know that my visa has been revoked and that I am banned from the country as a result of my inflammatory and Islamophobic tweets. This email that I got included a document listing some of my tweets that they deemed, Islamophobic. Of course, none of them were Islamophobic, but my initial reaction was immediately I appealed through the formal channels. I then contacted my friend, Ambassador Mike Huckabee, the U.S. Ambassador to Israel, the Israeli foreign minister, Israel's ambassador to the UN or previous ambassador to the UN, and many other diplomatic channels. So in addition to appealing, I went diplomatic, and I also went to the media. I waited a couple of days, but I went to the media, and it got hundreds of articles, thinking at least one of those 3 things, either it's the appeal or the diplomatic channels or the media, something's going to get this absurd decision reversed. None of those things yielded any results, and the decision was not reversed, and I am officially banned from Australia for 3 years. Just when I thought it couldn't get any more ludicrous, the Australian government went and banned someone else, Kanye West. And not only did they ban me and Kanye West, but they actually went on record stating that just like they banned Hillel Fuld for his Islamophobic tweets, they're banning Kanye West for his anti-Semitic tweets.
Isn't it stupid, this moral equivalence that these governments, they're so ignorant And then they go ahead and they have this moral equivalence to call out the barbarity of the terrorism that resulted in the murder of 1,200 people and the kidnapping of over 250 women, children, old men, old women, Holocaust survivors, Nacht. And that they then equivalate us with a hoodlum like Kanye West. And you, I mean, I'm looking at you. I'm trying to see that terrorist face in there. I can't see it. Can you just give me a profile view? I just want to see if it's any more menacing on the profile. And, like, you're not even, at least if you made the same cash as Kanye West, maybe you could say, okay, it is really painful to watch this happening in Australia. It is painful watching it happen in Canada. Very, very painful. I call it the betrayal of the Jew. And I had an interesting conversation, and through this podcast, The Unfiltered View, I'm often now afforded the opportunity to talk to people like yourself, Hillel Fuld, outspoken advocate of the Jewish people. Thank you very much. I spoke with just recently. I spoke with Thane Rosenbaum. Thane is a fantastic guy. You should look him up. He's an activist. He's a lawyer. And he said something really interesting. He said, what has happened here is that Jew hate is so strong that the woke Marxist liberals have made a partnership with the jihadists, with the death cult. Here's the world gone mad right before you. Here's the dissonance that I'm trying to figure out. Excuse me for getting excited. But it's my survival. It's our survival. And the dissonance is that you've got life-loving liberals who respect, diversity, equity, inclusion, if I got that all right. And they team up and they partner with a death cult, with exactly the opposite of the morality that they live for. Because Jew hate is so strong, anti-Semitism is so strong that it defies reasoning. It defies any kind of logic. Intelligent people are out there displaying their ignorance and stupidity. I came across a woman in Kensington Market, which is a part of Toronto, really hippie kind of part of Toronto. I enjoy having lunch there. And this woman is handing out flyers asking people not to buy Israeli products and support a BDS, the garbage. And what's her name? Her name is Smadar. And I tell her, my name is Israel. And she says, my father's name was Israel. I said, you must really hate yourself to go ahead and do this. She says, don't make this personal. That's what she said to me. Don't make this personal. She's wearing a keffiyeh. She's got earrings with Palestinian flags. Of course it's personal. It's our lives. They want to annihilate. They want to commit genocide. Don't make this personal. There's a lot of that out there, Hillel, and it's demoralizing. And we're at a stage where people are saying the stupidest things and doing the stupidest things. I'd like to really figure out what is the solution. How do we counter the narrative of hate? How do we counter this curriculum, this syllabus of hate? The Western free world in this partnership with the death cult, the jihadists that are invading really every corner and fabric of our society through this subversive hate that is just going everywhere. And what do you think is the solution there?
So if you're asking Hillel Fuld, the geopolitical commentator, I have one answer. And if you're asking Hillel Fuld, the observant Jew, I have another answer. From an observant Jewish perspective, anti-Semitism is built into the DNA of the universe, and it ain't going anywhere. It's always been. It will always be. And they hated us when we were not white enough in Germany. They hate us now because we're too white. They hated us when we were poor. They hated us when we were rich. They hated us when we were stateless. They hate us when we have a state. Anti-Semitism is not going anywhere. It's just it's a part of the DNA. It's just part of, it's built in. That's what I believe based on Jewish scripture. That's not to say that we shouldn't address it and try to, do whatever we can to, at the very least, slow it down. Again, I don't know that we're going to make it go away. That's from a religious or from a Jewish perspective. From a geopolitical perspective, there's, I think, from a public opinion perspective, there's a fundamental problem here, and that is that our enemies have a very basic and simple narrative, right? Anyone can understand the narrative of you are oppressing us, free Palestine. You could be a 4-year-old, you could be a 98-year-old, and you could still understand that narrative. It's as basic and easy to understand as it gets. If you look at our narrative, and when I say our, I mean take any Jewish influencer or pro-Israel advocate, and you'll see that they're all yelling different things. Some of them are important, but are a waste of our time. For example, yelling all day long about how the New York Times hates us. How is that the best use of your time? Meaning, if the world hates you as much as you say the world hates you, which they do, then why are you yelling when no one's listening? Right? So is that really the best use of your time? So the answer is, not only do our enemies have a very easy to understand narrative, but we don't have a narrative at all. And what we do have is completely fragmented. And so the first thing we need to do is figure out what our narrative is. And our narrative should be one word: light. The Jewish people have been a source of light in this world in a very real way. And it's time we stopped apologizing. We are just stuck in the exile mindset of apologizing. We have to stop apologizing. We have to stop apologizing that this is our land. We have to stop apologizing that the Jewish people have been a source of light in this world. We have to stop apologizing that we experience genocide and what we're doing is anything but genocide. We have to stop apologizing. But unfortunately, too many of us are stuck in that exile mindset. So that's the first thing we need to do. And that is the first step to achieving some sort of at least playing the same sport as our enemies, right? They're coming at us with like, look what you're doing in Gaza. Look at this, dead baby.
So what is that? What is that simplified message? You said that we're the people of light. I like to say we're the people of life. I was interviewing a Holocaust survivor, Saul Neiman, on a former episode of ours, and he said love. He says we need to love each other. We need to love the world. We need to open our ears and our eyes, and we need to accept people. And so we've got light, we've got life, and we've got love. The terrorists have a very simple position. We're going to murder Jews all day long. I saw just a post with white letters, and it says, I hate Jews all day long, and I hate Jews with every fabric of my being. And I'm like, wow. I mean, you couldn't get simpler than that. First of all, it's scary to see something like that someone has the tenacity and shamelessness to go ahead and post something like that without fear of consequence for posting, which is another thing we can get into is the liberty, the license that people feel to hate. But what is our narrative? What should our narrative be, Hillel? What is the simplicity of the message that we want, that we should, in your opinion, that we should be carrying forward into the world at large?
In the beginning of the Torah, there's a very famous story, which is the story of God coming to Abraham and saying, Abraham, leave your land and go to the land of Canaan, aka Israel. And he says 4 words to Abraham that the words are, Va'avarcha mevarechecha, those who bless the Jewish people will be blessed. Umekalelcha, those who curse you, those who bring darkness, those who make up lies about you, Aor, they will see your light. They will see your delegations. They will see your unity. They will see your charity. They will see the love. They will see the life. They will see the light.
My name is Israel Ellis, and this is The Unfiltered View, a companion to the Wake Up Call. Please show your appreciation for this podcast by liking it, sharing it, commenting on it, and follow me on IsraelEllis.com and on Substack. I thank you for tuning in when you had the choice to tune out.